All right. So what we have, you should have printed out when you're ready to start drawing. You'll need to have printed out um, your photograph on copy paper, and ideally it should take up as much of the page as possible. Okay, so once you have that printed with your margins small, you can go ahead and cut out the image, cut around the edges, and if you have access to a paper cutter, that's going to be easier. If not, it's fine. It is not necessary. Scissors work great. Okay, so cut out my edges. And then I'm going to place this onto my page. You can do this in your sketchbook. I'm just going to place it like that, and I'm actually going to trace around it. In order to trace it nice and straight, you're going to want to use a ruler or some sort of a straight edge because the paper itself is too thin to provide a nice straight edge. Okay, so I'm placing my ruler right on the edge of the page. This will also give you a nice border on your paper. And it's going to make it easier for you to do this drawing because the drawing that you're doing is going to be the exact same size as the photograph. All right, so we should have a box that is the same size as our photograph. And the next thing you're going to want to do is give yourself a really, really simple grid, which we'll just call crosshairs because it's just going to be a line going this way and vertically and horizontally on both the photograph and on your final piece of paper. And if you line it up, you can kind of do it all at once. So I'm just going to measure and find my halfway mark. So this is about 6 inches. So I'm going to mark off at 3 inches at the top. I'm also going to mark off 3 inches at the bottom so that my line is nice and straight. Otherwise, it will probably be crooked if you just try to eyeball it. Then I can draw my line. I can move my paper and then also draw the line right here because I've marked where that is on this page. And I also want to have some cross lines to give me some reference in the other direction as well. So I'm going to do a horizontal line by measuring here. So that is this is a different size paper than I had before. So this is about 4.5 inches. So that's going to be 2 1/4. Is that right? Yes, 2 1/4. Quarter mark is right here. So it's right here. And then over here, 4.5. So 2 1/4. And I'll connect those. And keep this straight. Connect those. I'm trying to put sufficient pressure on this so that you guys can see my cross lines. You don't have to press super hard. This paper, you actually might want to do, if you want this to be your final copy, you'll actually want your lines to be super light. But you can also make them dark and then just trace this onto a new paper without the grid lines when you're done. Okay, so now we have some reference to help us figure out where things are. And right now, we're not going to get really detailed with the drawing, but what I want to do is I want to mark off where things are and the angles that things are going in. Okay, so I like to have 2 pencils or maybe a ruler. And I'm going to start by marking off, like, I want to know what's the direction of the space. The space is not, it's not vertical, it's slanted. So I might draw a line, a little guideline. So I'll just hold the pencil on that line. That kind of shows, okay, the direction of the face is an angle like that. Let's see if I can fit all this on the same page at once. Okay, so if I get that angle here, I can translate that over to my page over here. Okay, and as long as you're holding the paper, neither one is crooked, like they're both kind of in line with each other, then this is a great way to get this to get this angle. So I'm checking my angle here. I'm lining it up with the center line of the face, and then I'm translating it over here. And then I can even just like lightly trace that. Okay. And let's see, I'm just going to draw that line on here. I don't know if you guys can see it. I'll do it with a, see if I can do it with this. See if you can see this with the white pen. Sort of. Okay, so there's that line is there on the face. And this one looks pretty much the same over here. Okay. All right. I'm also going to, there's one other main technique that you will probably use a lot of, and that because these two things are the exact same size, I can actually use my fingers sort of as measuring tool, and I can measure what's the distance from the bottom of the page to the chin. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and measure that, and that's about here. So then I know the bottom of the chin is about here, and I know the face is angled like that. From there, I'm going to use the same technique of checking the angles to get the perimeter of the face. So rather than drawing the face as if it is curves, which obviously it does have curves, I'm going to draw it like a series of angles. And I don't know if you guys can see that. These pens do not work very well on this. Okay, hopefully you can kind of see that outline of the chin. So then what I'm going to do is take my pencil. I already got the angle of the chin. Okay, what's the angle of this part? Like that. And then right about when we cross this line, it starts to change directions. It goes almost vertically. Okay. Then we're coming in a little bit, just a tiny bit. Forehead. And you can check each of these measurements. I'm sort of eyeballing it by now because I have done this a ton of times. The hair, I'm also, rather than drawing anything curved, I'm just going to draw it as a series of angles. Okay. And we can you can adjust these curves afterwards. So checking this angle. And then it starts to come up like that. So what is that angle? And that crosses right about here. So this is going to give me a pretty good, it's going to be a pretty good guide for me. Okay, the other thing that you'll want to start marking off is where are the features before you start to actually draw any features. Like let's figure out where are the features and what are their angles. So the bottom of the nose I notice is right at this intersection here, and it kind of is angling like this. Okay, the eyes, I can use my fingers and sort of measure from here to here. Sorry, you can't see that. Here to here. You can also use a ruler, but you don't need to. The eyes are going to be somewhere along there. The mouth is going to be looking at the center of the mouth, so I can use my fingers. What's the best way to show you this? Like this. Fingers to measure center of the mouth from nose. It's going to be somewhere around here. So I'm starting to mark things off. Before I draw anything, I want to know where everything is. I also like to check what's the relationship of the bottom of the nose to the mouth. So that's going to be an angle from the bottom of the nose to the corner of the mouth. Is going to be this angle. Translate that over. Okay, so this is lots of good information. I'll do the same thing with the shoulders. So checking this angle, translating it over. I'm probably going to ultimately ignore this big light in the corner, but I can deal with that later. Shirt angle, this angle, all angles. Okay. And you're going to continue like that until you have the basic kind of skeleton drawn. At which point we can go back, and once you've marked off the size of the eyes and just exactly where things are, then you can go back and add those sort of details. You can also go back eventually and kind of curve out some of these things that are not actually pointed, but you're going to find that your curves are much more accurate if you draw them as angles rather than as just attempting to kind of like freehand a curve. It just doesn't usually work very well. Okay, so we'll stop there, and then next we'll move on to the details for the next demonstration.